So with Daredevil Born Again coming in March, I thought I would go back and revisit the original Netflix 2015 Daredevil show. Now, I want to make this clear. I did see this show way back when it first aired in 2015. I actually thought it was 2012. I thought it was older than it actually was. But I did see the show, but it's been a long time. A very, very long time. I know I enjoyed it, and I saw season 2, some of it. Don't remember if I finished it. And then I never got to see the Defenders, and I never got to see season 3. So with this review, if I have time, I'll check out the Defenders, even though I know it's important for the season 3 storyline. But the idea here is to go back and revisit the 2015 Daredevil show. So that's what I'm doing here today. This show, man, this show was so incredibly popular, and here's why. I'm going to say why. I'm going to tell you right off the hop why this show is such a big deal. Because it doesn't disrespect the audience. The show is grimy. The show is gutter. The show's the dark side of Hell's Kitchen. The main character, Charlie Cox, is Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. It shows the evolution. It shows his backstory through a number of flashbacks, his relationship with his father, and then when Stick trained him on how to be a superhero. And basically the moral is taking a handicap, taking a disability, and using it effectively and learning how to use your body better and your other senses better than you would if you had all 5. And so they explain all of this right at the beginning. They tell you how he got his powers, and then little by little sort of explain where he learned how to fight and things of that nature. So there's that. You have that on one side. Then on the other side, you've got, of course, the Kingpin. You've got Wilson Fisk, played brilliantly by Vincent Dinofrio. This performance is really the one that captivated me when I first saw this show. Vincent Dinofrio is a tremendous actor. He's been in a lot of great films and been around for decades. He was born to play the Kingpin. I remember when there was talk of them bringing in Daredevil and Kingpin into the MCU. This is years ago, by the way. And remember how there was that chatter about how Kevin Feige wanted to bring them in, but not played by Charlie Cox or Vincent D'Onofrio? And I know a lot of fans, including me, were like, no, nobody else should play Wilson Fisk but Vincent D'Onofrio. It's almost like J.K. Simmons playing J. Jonah Jameson. It's like he was born to play this role. This portrayal of the Kingpin was incredible. He was dangerous. He was ruthless. He was downright terrifying, but yet he had a soul and he had a soft spot for one lady, and his girlfriend or whatever you want to call it, and it showed that he had a human side. He's a three-dimensional character because there are parts of this show when you're watching it where you kind of sort of root for him. And I'm just going to be honest with you. There's a couple times where you do kind of understand when they go into his backstory with flashbacks. These TV shows, right? What makes them probably in some ways better than the movies when it comes to developing characters is that you've got time. This show was 13 episodes, and each episode was about an hour. So that's plenty of time for them to sort of slowly tell us the backstory. So we see like how Matt Murdock, and his relationship with his father, who was a boxer, and how they were paying him to throw fights, and how he learned how to fight. And then we see, of course, the Kingpin story, the Wilson Fisk story about his father, which was very, very dark. I mean, a very dark backstory, and it shows that these villains are oftentimes made by their pain. It's like Magneto. Magneto is such a focused and interesting character because of the fact that he already dealt with racism during World War II. He was a Jewish man caught up by the Nazis, and he sees that same type of hatred towards mutants, and all it does is trigger his PTSD. With Wilson Fisk, he's way more ruthless and way more power hungry, but he does it because he's afraid of losing what's close to him. And as the story unravels, you see that. And I love that. And so what I was saying earlier was the show respects its audience. And with these TV shows, you're able to spend more time telling the backstory. You're able to spend more time developing the characters, telling us why they matter, and getting us to care. Look, I am not saying that Wilson Fisk is a hero, and I am not saying that Matt Murdock is a villain, but both of these guys are ruthless and violent multiple times in the show, and it's awesome. The part where Daredevil saves that girl and beats down those thugs, I remember it being later in the show. It was episode 2. They got that out of the way quickly. And so these two guys have something in common. They really do have something in common. They're very driven men, but also, you know, even if you recognize that Kingpin is power hungry, is ruthless, is a killer, part of you sort of understands the character and maybe gives him a break from time to time. That's how I felt. Again, I'm not justifying his behavior, but I understand why he's so angry at the world. I mean, to put up with what he put up with his abusive father, you know, it makes sense. And, you know, watching this 10 years ago, look, I'm just going to say this. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a very changed man from who I used to be. I've changed a lot. And so watching this in 2015, I don't think my brain was ready to really understand the show like it is now. Like, I really get the show now, and it really, like, I'm not saying it didn't connect before, but it connected even more now. Charlie Cox plays such a likable Matt Murdock, such a lovable guy. Like, you want to be his friend. Like, you can tell that he does okay with the ladies, even though he's blind. And I love the whole, him sort of, dealing with his Catholicism and his faith and how that sort of has to do, you know, what leads to him, you know, him being so motivated to do the right thing. And man, he's a lot like Batman. It reminds me a lot of the 2022 Batman. This show does. Then you've got Eldon Henson playing Foggy Nelson. Eldon Henson was one of the Bash brothers from the Mighty Ducks, and he's a great sort of best friend character. There's a backstory where we see how him and Matt became friends in college, and I really enjoyed seeing that. Like, that story really played out to me well. Rosario Dawson as Claire, you know, with that little relationship that they have, and I know she sticks around. I like sort of how she was trying to do the right thing, but she gets caught up in this, and the story sort of moves away from her. Like, I noticed that the story doesn't, I thought she was, again, based on my own memory, I thought she was going to end up being more of a recurring character, but I guess she's not. And, you know, I thought that was an interesting choice, but, my God, like, this show was really well done. Drew Goddard did a great job. You know, and it really is insulting and infuriating that at one point in the past, Kevin Feige got into it with the TV guy, and they sort of decanonized this from the MCU, and now they recanonized it because they realized, like, how stupid can you be? They were gonna do Daredevil Born Again without these two guys. Are you kidding me? Or without this storyline? No, but thankfully now Born Again picks up from where the old show left off and continues the story. And I'm excited to go into season 2. The violence, and I love how we see the progression. We see that, you know, he needs a better suit. Talking about Matt, he gets a better suit. Finally, in the last episode, he gets the suit. You know, he becomes the Daredevil. They become who they are. So it ends up being a long 13-episode origin story. Why can't we get a Spider-Man show like this? I want a live-action, grimy, street-level Spider-Man show like this. You know what I mean? The same type of vibe. Maybe even the same writers. Maybe even them. But I mean, the show delivers, and it really is a great juxtaposition to stuff like Thor and Iron Man, which is more glamorous, more sizzle, more comic booky. This was more like a suspense thriller. Yes, there's comic book characters and mysterious powers that Matt Murdock has despite being blind, but it was so grounded. I mean, one of the things I loved is that Daredevil was not invincible. He gets his ass kicked a few times. He gets beaten up a few times. You know, and he's not just like this unbeatable ninja, like sort of like how Batman was in Batman Begins. I wonder, think about this. Think about this for a minute. Can you imagine what would happen if Christopher Nolan, instead of doing Batman Begins, put aside Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises for a minute, but instead of doing Batman Begins as a 2.5 hour movie, if that same story was made into a 15 or 13 episode TV show, can you imagine how much better that would have been? I know that I'm not saying Batman Begins isn't a great movie because I love that movie, but think about how much more development they would have given Bruce, Ra's al Ghul, Alfred. You know, that's the type of stuff that benefits from good television. And this show is good television. People were saying it's like the best Marvel show ever. I mean, I really like this. I would say that after watching it now, 10 years later, I would say season 1, I think, ranks up there with like low key. Like probably my 2 favorite live action MCU shows or Marvel shows, that is. And it really, really changed a lot of, how Marvel can be presented. And I will say this as well. It's a damn travesty that the Defenders weren't in Endgame, because I remember there was talk amongst the fans that we wanted them there, even if it was for a cameo, even if it was not even to fight Thanos, but just to even just be there to help out, and nothing. So maybe we'll get an idea of where they were at. Maybe Born Again, unless I missed something, I didn't see Echo. Maybe they were snapped away. I don't know. But man, this was a great show. Tremendous. The costumes were great. Wilson Fisk is such an interesting character. Like, his interactions, he's very soft-spoken. Then he gets angry. Like, he's got a temper problem. He's got a violence problem. But obviously, what he did to his own father, and like sort of how Karen and the other people from the law firm are trying to figure out who he is and the backstory. You've got the cops sort of involved. Like, there are some real, like, it was a real travesty what happened to some of the characters. So if you haven't seen this show in a long time, dude, I would recommend rewatching it now. We have a month to go before Daredevil Born Again, and I still got more episodes to get through, and they are hour-long episodes, not just 30-minute ones like Cobra Kai. But I would recommend seeing this show again now. Obviously, everybody watching this is much older and, more mature, and probably views life a bit differently than we did when we were younger. I mean, I wasn't that young when this came out, but it really hit me more now than it did back then. So, like, I just get it more. Maybe because I'm a bit more mature and I can sort of, sort of accept these storylines a bit more. So there you go. Thumbs up for Daredevil Season 1. Let's check out Season 2 when the time comes. And I will see you guys for that review.